in 3 places in America, in South Wales, in Essex, and in Portugal.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well done.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Best story I heard in the last few weeks.
And my a neighbour of ours up the road who makes signs and fixes cars has took the design and he's selling them too. So, but at least somebody will make benefit of it. So,
Good.
Yeah. But no, it's going well. It's actually been featured in Irish Medical Journal or something today, so I've heard.
All right. Okay.
Yeah, it was featured on the LinkedIn articles yesterday, Martin.
That's right. Yes.
The articles of the day. Yeah.
So that get a lot of hits on LinkedIn. Yeah. So no, it's interesting. Yeah, but it shows the power of business, because the other, like the the anesthetic box for the anaesthetists, it's been made in all those countries. But the other thing is the face shield, and we put that out on WhatsApp to loads of people, and loads of companies came back and said, yeah, we could do this and we could do that. And Dara O'Reilly from Quinn Group said, yep, we'll give you plastic. We'll give you 2.5 tons of plastic for free. Our foam manufacturer that supplies our foam, they said, yep, no problem. We'll reopen part of the factory, bring in more people, and we'll make the foam. Block Blinds in Marfelt, County Derry, they said we could cut the plastic. But then a couple of days later, Block Blinds factory had to close because they were an essential worker, or they weren't an essential worker. Right. So they had 100 people sitting at home, and they said, sure, why don't we bring everyone in and assemble the face shields? So now they have 100 people building face shields, and they're going to make 1.5 million of them in the next 8 weeks.
Wow. So the design that you've come up with?
Yeah, well, it's the design that we found, and you just connected to people, and we're not really involved in it anymore. But Block Blinds are, because they have 100 people sitting idle, they're able to make use of it. But it shows the power of business.
Amazing.
You know, and they're being sold on the internet by medical companies for £20, and they're supplying them to the health service for less than £2.
Wow.
Wow.
Brilliant. And as a
God bless the middleman. The middleman always wins. Huh?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Well, you'll tell us a little bit about that story on the webinar.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that'll be very inspiring for people to hear just how it's the different players involved.
Yeah, that's okay.
And maybe how it came about.
Yeah. John, I don't think we've met before, but what's your business, or what do you do?
I'm in the horse racing, which seems, excuse me.
Who we lost? We lost.
John.
My phone rang. My phone rang. Sorry, my phone rang. I'm in the horse racing world.
Yes.
I trained as a veterinary surgeon, but I grew up on a horse farm, so I've been in horses all my life. So
yeah.
It all seems quite trivial in the current climate, but anyway, that's what I've been doing for 30 years. So.
Well, it's jobs.
It's what?
Are you connected to Joe Osborne?
Yeah, my brother, yeah.
Oh, right. I did Timony with Joe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And then I think we've met before, Michelle, from Lily Brains, isn't that right?
Yes, indeed, yes.
Yeah. Good.
Okay, well, just what we might do here is double check that our phones are on silent if possible.
Yeah.
For calls.
Yeah.
I don't know. It might, if you go in airplane mode, if you're on Wi-Fi, John, that will knock out the calls on the mobile.
Will it not knock out the Wi-Fi as well? No.
No, I think it keeps Wi-Fi on. Yeah.
Yeah, it shouldn't. And if you have any phone or anything nearby, landline or whatever, that you can quieten down in case calls.
I'll do it immediately. No problem, John. Thanks a million. I don't want you to miss the start.
Just mute. That's clear. Okay. Great. Okay, a few minutes to go. We lost John, did we? We did.
He put it on Wi-Fi. I put it on airplane mode. He would have knocked his Wi-Fi out.
No, he's still
If he
there.
was using the phone, you see, he has Wi-Fi.
Well, the Wi-Fi should stay on.
Maybe it depends if his chair isn't, or if his phone isn't updated.
Okay. We'll just wait till he comes back, and then we'll broadcast. So if as I say, there's a Q&A here as well. So if you want to throw out questions during it to people who are listening, saying, you'd be interested in any insights from people, that's an option too, and we can read some of those out if they're relevant.
How have the other webinars gone over the last few weeks running?
Good, yeah. They're being hosted by Yesay, so they're very well equipped to do it, and they have everything set up, and they initially were doing them in Yesay, and then they've moved them to people's homes because they can't do it on site. Yeah, but there's quite a lot of people attending them.
Good.
Some of them I found some quite useful. There was one on virtual teams there that was very good. Yeah, there was one yesterday on operations. I missed that, but they have them recorded, so you can go back afterwards. And
that was my next question for you. Can you go back, because I missed a few that were actually looked really good?
Yeah, on the website they have a little tab at the top which is past webinars, and you click in there, you can access them. They're up on YouTube. Welcome back, John.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not on Wi-Fi. I'm on the network.
Okay, it's better.
But the phone might ring, but it's on mute. So
great. Okay, well, I'm going to go broadcast, which means anyone who is an attendee will be able to join us, because they may, at this stage they're probably trying to, and we'll be live as well. So thank you again for joining us, and good luck with this. Okay. Should be an interesting experiment. Okay, fantastic. Well, we'll wait till with 1 minute to go before we start, and we already have a few attendees who've joined us. So you're in Lily O'Brien's today, Michelle?
I am. We're back operational today. We shut down yesterday to try and establish the essential services piece, just to get confirmation from Board BIA and just make sure everything is okay. We've export orders that are imminently due to leave, so we have a scaled back crew in today to get those
very good
out the door.
Okay. Well,
I always said chocolate was essential.
I think it's proving to be more essential this weather, John.
Very good. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our first Timony alumni panel discussion on leadership in turbulent times. It's hard to comprehend really what's happened over the past few weeks and months, and I imagine not easy for many of us to get to grips with the implications of overcoming this pandemic, dealing with it first of all, but then getting back from it too. First of all, I wish and hope that all of you and your families are in good health, and that you stay safe over the coming weeks, and indeed that your organization does too. It's a challenging time for all organizations that you're leading. And like many of you here in Timony, we're trying to respond as best we can. Our focus has naturally shifted to supporting you in your leadership role, as many of you are facing what I think we could aptly describe as the challenge of a lifetime, something that really will, in some ways, maybe define our leadership. And talking to different alumni over the past few weeks, it's been really encouraging to hear how many of you are kind of making use of or applying the insights that you've gained over the Advanced Leadership Program. And also great to see how the alumni network is really kicked into action in different ways, collaborating and solving different challenges. And I know Martin, Tierney, who's joined us here, will share a very practical example of that. And it's great too on some of the WhatsApp groups to be getting the funny posts. We all need a bit of humor in these days too. Purpose of the webinar today is really to get an insight into how alumni from different sectors are facing this leadership challenge. I'm sure there'll be probably more questions than answers. We're all searching for them. And in that respect too, your thoughts and comments as attendees that you might want to share in the Q&A would be great as well. 3 alumni have joined us here for a discussion of about 30 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A. If you are interested in asking questions, hopefully at the bottom of your screen you'll see a little Q&A button, and if you press on that, it should allow you to type in a question, and we'll be introducing those to the panel. So first of all, just to introduce who we have, John Osborne. John did the Advanced Leadership Program in 2013, our very first program. He was a guinea pig, and at the time he was CEO of the Irish National Stud. He's now Director of Equine Welfare and Bloodstock with the Horse Racing Ireland. Some of you may have heard him on the radio last week explaining how they were trying to keep jobs going in the industry by running race meetings behind closed doors until a stop was put on that. We're also joined by Michelle Vance. Michelle did the leadership program in 2008. She was CFO of Lily O'Brien's at the time, Lily O'Brien Chocolates, manufacturer of delicious chocolates, it has to be said, and desserts, which are exported internationally and produced in Newbridge. We'll be passing a box of chocolates around during the webinar. Just please only take one, so there's enough for everyone. Some of you will know that just this past year, we had another first in Timony, in that Michelle with Lily O'Brien's and Professor Joe Pons have produced our first case study, and Irish case study, which was featured on the February module on the program this year, which was great to have, and hopefully first of many. Michelle was just appointed CEO of Lily O'Brien's in the past 10 days. What a job to get at such a time. So congratulations on your appointment, Michelle. And I hope this will certainly be testing you in different ways, and best of luck with it. And then finally, Martin Tierney, who did the ALP in 2017. Martin is CEO of Seating Matters, family-owned business in Limavady. And Seating Matters is an innovative manufacturer of healthcare seating, supplying hospitals and nursing homes. It has the very lofty objective of changing the world through healthcare seating, which is great. Working in the healthcare industry, I know, Martin, you're probably particularly busy at the moment, so thank you very much for taking time out to be with us. Some of you will have seen the initiative that Martin has undertaken in designing some healthcare equipment, so hopefully you'll be able to tell us a little bit about that as well. I take it, Martin, you were working over the weekend producing.
Yes, yeah. So the paradox of the situation is the more people get ill, the more demand there is for our equipment, the more people we need to make it, and the less people that we have to make it. So as we've experienced some illness in Seating Matters, thankfully nothing too serious. We're putting out record numbers of chairs with the smallest number of people that we've ever had. So that's the challenge we're working through at the minute. But really, despite anything that we're doing on our side, the heroes in this whole situation are the nurses, the pharmacists, the GPs, the doctors, the surgeons, the anaesthetists, the cleaners, everyone working inside a hospital building with a hospital uniform on. They're the heroes in this whole situation. And all we're doing is trying to support them, to enable them to do their job a little bit better. So we're going to great lengths, but nothing compared to what any of them people are doing.
Very good, very good. Well done on that. I'm sure we're all appreciative of the efforts that, as you say, all of the people working in the healthcare industry at the moment are providing. But they badly need what you're providing as well.
Yeah.
Is it moved on from the seating end of things into other areas now, or are you still producing the seats?
Yeah, well, last week I was involved in 2 different projects. One is to design and make a face shield, a plastic face visor which comes down over the person's face. And the second is an aerosol box which fits over a person's head and shoulders when they're in surgery, being intubated and extubated by an anaesthetist. So we found designs for 2 of these things on the internet, and we spent a few days passing these designs around subcontractors and suppliers and through the Timony group. And we found 2 manufacturers who would make these. And now these products are being used by thousands and thousands and thousands of people just within the space of 8 days.
Fantastic.
And some of them been used in Portugal and Spain, UK and Ireland, America, Canada. It's crazy how fast something spreads in a time of need.
Very good.
Yeah. But the need is dire. The need is, it's incredible. We actually, this weekend, we have now got a new product line. We're now manufacturing medical beds. We get calls Friday, Saturday and Sunday from the health service to see if we could manufacture medical beds for them. And I said on the first couple of calls, I said, we don't make medical beds. And they said, we know you don't, but we need you to. We need you to start. So we're started yesterday to manufacture our first medical bed. And by the end of this week, we're going to deliver 500 of them. And in the next few weeks, we're ramping up to make probably thousands and thousands of medical beds for temporary pop-up hospitals that are going up around the country and in different countries as well.
Wow! And how are you managing to achieve this with your staff and distancing and so forth? How is it?
Yeah,
how's that working?
I think we were maybe a little bit early on this, on the distancing thing, because we're very close to the front line and our customers are very close to the front line. I'm hearing the worst of the worst side of coronavirus. So the fear that put in me, and the fear that someone in our building could get sick because we were asking them to come into work was incredible. So very early on, we sent all our office people home, and then we sent all our design team home, and then we had a few people went off sick that for precaution, we'll let them off sick. And we've just enforced a really strict policy of 3 meter separation. If you come any closer than 3 meters to somebody, you have to leave. You have to go home. Wow. Everyone comes in through the door, washes their hands, and somebody stands and makes sure they wash their hands every morning, every evening, before they eat their lunch, after they eat their lunch, before they go to the bathroom, after they leave the bathroom. Everyone's got gloves, hand sanitizer, soap and water. We've split up the bathrooms. We built new bathrooms so that there wouldn't be too many people congregating in one place at once. We went to extreme lengths, but it doesn't matter if it means that everyone's healthy. You know, it's worth it to do that.
Yeah, well done. And at the same time, you're ramping up a production of products that you haven't done before, or designs you haven't.
Yeah, incredible. So our 2 designers spent all day Saturday and all day Sunday designing a medical bed, to manufacture it yesterday, to test it today, to manufacture it again tomorrow, and ramp up production this weekend. So we can't share too much about it because a lot of it's confidential. But sure. Imagine your hospital at the City West. Imagine your XL hospital in London. It's that type of environment that this medical bed that we've designed in 3 days is going into.
Fantastic. Yeah. Well done. That's brilliant. And Michelle, how have you managed to keep operating as well? Because you're in the food business, which is key to us all.
I think we had to make a number of changes across the business, Ronan. Very early on, we needed to look at how do we reduce the number of people that were on site. So like everywhere, implementing remote office working initially where it was possible to do, but now 95% of people are working remotely. From a production line point of view, the production area was the easiest area to do because it's separated by machinery and equipment. The challenge was the packing area, where you could potentially have 28 people standing on a line packing at any one time. So quite early on, the operations team and I sat down and said we would reduce significantly the speed of the lines to allow us to separate people out a minimum of 2 meters apart from one another. And that went into place over 2 weeks ago. So we're accepting lower efficiency, we're accepting lower throughput, but we're accepting it because we're keeping our people safe. Unfortunately, as it has rolled out across the globe, we have seen an impact on sales, which means that the requirement to produce has reduced, which means that we're not under as much pressure to run longer hours than we need to. We also took
part of your business's airline business is part of yours as well, isn't it?
Yeah, airline was probably the first to be impacted. From early March, we started to see the impact. By early last week, for St. Patrick's week, orders had disappeared. We had to close down the potted desserts factory itself and redeploy those staff to other areas in the business. We took a decision to remove all agency staff from the site so that we could best protect our own Lily's full-time staff and just keep numbers absolutely to a minimum. We also implemented splitting the shifts. So we run a day shift and an evening shift, but they don't cross paths anymore. There's a 30-minute gap between when one shift leaves the plant and the next shift starts. And it's all about just creating those distances between people to keep them safe.
Very good, very good. So it's managing, you're managing to keep up with it then.
It's managing to keep up with it, and it's managing to keep people comfortable. Fear is probably the big factor, that when you do have large numbers of people operating on one site, you are always trying to manage employee fear. And the last thing you want to do is expose anybody to risk. Yeah, very good, very good. And John, can you fill us in a little bit on the horse racing industry? I know there was a bit of controversy, understandably, around Cheltenham and the perception that maybe there were more important things to be focused on. But obviously there are a lot of livelihoods depending on the sector that you're looking out for.
Yeah, it's been a difficult month. And I suppose everyone's aware of the speed at which the story has unfolded. You know, the Cheltenham thing is not directly under our control, but it obviously is a target for many of the Irish horses after a long, hard season, and it's the pinnacle. So there was a momentum built up about Cheltenham, you know, to the extent that in Britain they never even questioned that it was going to go ahead. Ironically, the day after it finished, they started to change, and within 4 days of Cheltenham closing, all English racing had stopped. So that's how quickly things changed. It certainly, you know, it drew a lot of attention, a lot of people congregating, but, you know, we felt a little bit, whatever, like there was a Liverpool match that week it seemed to raise no eyebrows, whereas Cheltenham did. It seemed to attract all the attention. Even though, yeah, anyway, it's a similar type of arrangement. But anyway, hindsight is wonderful, and there's no point looking back. A lot of Irish people travelled and whatever else. Our own decision was, you know, that sort of the Broadway philosophy of, you know, the show must go on, and we created a way of staging our race meetings in a completely different way, which complied with all the regulations and were approved by the authorities to say, yeah, fire ahead, you know, try it anyway. And we tried it, and we had 9 fixtures, which showed that it could be done, but eventually the protocols were tightened up another notch, and we finished racing about a week ago. So we've had to readapt to that as well. So it's a very complex business. It looks simple on the outside, but we worked it out once that each race meeting involves engaging with at least 65 different service provision entities, not people, I mean entities or specialities. It's incredibly complex to get everything together, to do it safely and well. And there are, as you say, a lot of jobs at stake here. Like it's an industry that we've been saying for a long time. It sustains 28,000 full-time jobs in Ireland. It's a huge industry. It's a €2 billion industry. It's the 5th biggest agricultural export. Like it is massive. It's not for everybody. About 30% of the population are engaged with it at some level. So the majority of people, it's not for them. They don't necessarily object to it. They don't necessarily go to it, but it is very big where it is big. It's the 2nd biggest spectator sport in Britain and in Ireland. So like, that's what it is. So our first instinct was to keep the show on the road, to keep the jobs ticking over, to keep everybody busy, and to do whatever we could to sustain, the industry as it is. And I'm not sure how history is going to look upon us, but I stand over our decisions as we made them on the hoof, day by day, as the story unfolded. Some may choose to judge us critically on that, but I believe that we did it with the right intention. And I think that what we will find, and I've said this over and over, what we will find is at the other end of this crisis, resumption is going to be more difficult than cessation. It's easy to stop, but in this particular circumstance, it's going to be really difficult to resume. And so I believe that while we might be accused of being blind or not tuning into the zeitgeist, I think we did what we can do in our circumstances to do what's right. Like, I can't tug out as a frontline medical person overnight. There's a lot of things that I can't do, even though I'd love to do. I'm really impressed by Martin's story, and I wish we could do something like that, that was absolutely directly impactful on this crisis. But one thing that is important, and it's part of our discussion, which is that, the show must go on at some point in the future as well, and business has a huge part to play in that.
Very good. Yeah. And just, I suppose on that, like each of you have mentioned in different ways, but Martin, if I go back to you, what's been the most difficult decision about all of this that you've had to make? Because obviously, the case studies that we discuss in leadership programs, we often come out with the thing, there's no right answer, that it isn't that easy to find the right solution. But at the end of the day, you have to make a decision on some of these things.
The answer is easy, but it's a very difficult problem. The answer to that is, who do you help first? If you're looking in the swimming pool and there's 1,000 people drowning, which of them do you go and save?
Yeah.
And that's literally the decision that we've been making over the last week. Who do you help first? And not that the people are drowning, but the people are at risk of infection. And by getting one of our chairs, they'll get out of hospital maybe a day quicker, maybe get home, maybe get away from that environment where other people are sick and potential contamination. With the face shields, who do you allocate the face shield to in a hospital? Do you give it to the person that runs the nursing home, or do you give it to the person in the ICU, or do you give it to the person who's in the community going around visiting house to house? And if you have a million of them, we had to make them, but they're very difficult to make.
Very difficult, yeah.
And if you have a million of them, it's still not enough. The demand from the Northern Ireland Health Service alone is for 120,000 face shields per week.
Wow.
So you had a call yesterday from another Timony person that they have a friend working in a hospital and he wants 20,000 per week. But it's just the demand is endless, and it's who do you help first? So that's the big challenge. But again, like John said, you make your decision based on the information that's available at the time. Make it on the hoof and try and make it as best you can and live with it.
Yeah. And deal with it. Very good. Yeah, Michelle, what's been from decision point of view? What's been the challenge for you?
The challenge is trying to make the right decisions with an unknown period of time that we're facing into, and like forecasting at this point in time for any business is nigh on impossible, because the speed of change is so fast that you've only just finished and you're back starting again, or something has changed. So the difficult decisions are, do you do something short term now and face something that's longer term for the next 3 to 6 months? Or do you try and make small changes and try and ride out the journey for as long as you possibly can? And it's getting a balance between those two, because we will have to come out of this at some stage. The economy will have to kickstart, and as business leaders, we need to be ready and have the resources available to us to help that happen, because that's when the real challenge is going to happen.
Yeah. Very good, very good. And John, kind of looking at this stage, what have been the key learnings coming out of all of this for you, having tried what you've tried and looking to the future?
I suppose, the whole crisis is a huge lesson in humility, which doesn't need to be pointed out, if you like. When you think about values and your core beliefs, I mean, you really get tested under this sort of pressure. And I suppose, like, if hell freezes over, would you still do what you're doing? And I suppose we tried to stay true to that, even if it wasn't universally agreed with or accepted. So that's a communication thing about, is your core value digestible to everybody? You know what I mean? Can everybody get it? And that's maybe where we fell down when the pressure was on. You know what I mean? That the work we've done in terms of where we sit and how people understand us and how people see us, maybe we could have done better in preparation for this once in a lifetime event, but this is the test of us all. This is how good are you really? How good are your systems really? When the pressure is on, and we've never seen pressure quite like this. I have to pay tribute to the people who were prepared to do what we did in terms of keeping the show on the road. I mean, like Leo's phrase about capes will go down in history as one of the great phrases, but everybody has done their own thing within their own circle, whether it's looking after their own family or looking after their own business, or people have dug really deeply in the last few weeks to try and adapt to a very, very rapidly changing and challenging environment, and they have been heroes in their own way, and that's what I go back to what I said, to a certain extent we must do what is what we are best at to achieve the best outcome. And there are an awful lot of keyboard epidemiologists and virologists and experts on statistics who really should shut up and let the real people get on with it, and do what we can do to make the maximum impact. That's where I sit on it anyway.
Yeah, very good, very good. And Martin, just the key learning so far, because you've had to turn upside down and turn yourself inside out and still deliver the normal business as well.
Yeah. Anyone that tells you it's going to take a month to do something is lying to you. If something needs done, you can usually get it done in 12 hours, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And I've had the fortune or misfortune in being in scenarios like this before, where you're faced with an impossible task and you've got an hour, 2 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours to solve something. And the answer always comes. And it's belief and faith in all different types of things, but belief and faith in the people around you is an important part of that as well. Trusting that people will find the solution, that they'll be capable to do it. Just letting them get on with it. People can really do amazing things when push comes to shove. They really, really can.
And how in practice, like from a leadership point of view, you leading a group in this direction? You mentioned it there about letting them at it and trusting people, but how at the same time you've obviously you've engendered or inspired them in some way to really get around this and solve it in a quick way. So what else did you bring to the party?
Yeah, I think, like, from our perspective, it's really easy to motivate people, because we're working with patients who this is the most challenging time of their life when they come to needing one of our products. You know, it's a huge trauma for the person, for the family, for the caregivers, for everyone. So, you know, to go to a supplier of steel and to say, you know, I want to get you really excited about making a coat holder here, or a hat stand, or a whatever, it'd not be that easy to do. But, you know, in our industry, when people hear what we're doing, like, the offers of help that we've had in the last week are incredible. For the face shields, the plan was on Sunday afternoon to distribute them directly to every hospital that we could. And it didn't work out that way because the health service are distributing them on their own, which is fair enough. But on Sunday afternoon, we had decided that we were going to distribute them to every hospital and get them delivered to every hospital ward. So I went to our local van supplier, McPeak's Vans, and they said the keys to any vehicle in our yard, you can have them. I called their insurance supplier, Colin Mullen, and he says, yep, we'll get you insurance, no problem. And I put out WhatsApp to, you know, a load of people, and we got 30 drivers, 4 lorries, and 6 box vans, all within a couple of hours. So, you know, if you had told anyone I need a fleet of vehicles sitting in my yard this afternoon, they'd say it's impossible. You couldn't do it. You know, but when you've got a good cause and you can rally people around something, you know, you can really move mountains in a short space of time.
And at the same time, you're overcoming fear there. I mean, the fear you mentioned, because people have to put themselves at risk in some ways over, you know, working together, and in a time when everyone's been told to stay at home. So
yes.
it's very good. Excellent.
But you know, the person that says that it's going to take a long time to do this task you've asked me to do, that's nonsense. You know, if
One of your key learnings coming out of this crisis, you can get things done quicker. If
definitely
there's a way.
Yeah.
And Michelle, what kind of key learnings are coming out of this for you?
I think key learnings are, I suppose the world turned upside down, and even if you take it from a lot of companies like ourselves would have had a policy on not working remotely. And I think key learnings are, when push comes to shove, you can do anything. You can set people up at home and they will inherently work because they trust you as an employer and you trust them to get a job done. People want to help in times of hardship. And that has been a real learning, is the number of people that have rang my phone and said, I'm here, what do you need me to do? I don't care whether or not it's packing boxes of chocolates, or you need me to ring customers for payments. Whatever it is you need, we're here. So I think people inherently want to help in times of hardship. And it's been a real key learning for me.
Very good. Very good. Excellent. And John, is there anything different you're thinking of doing differently now, the way you're running the operations when things do get back up and running?
Well, yeah, we'd love to have a picture of what it will be like in terms of rebuilding, you know. Like, our industry is globally interconnected. There's 30 something countries with a very advanced horse racing, you know, game going on. And so when one market was down, another market was up. This is a situation which has, you know, impacted all markets simultaneously. We've a lot of stock in the pipeline at an industry level, you know, horses that were, you know, are young and ready to go into the racing program somewhere. You know, all those markets are going to be a little bit tighter this year. And, you know, there's no safety valve of, you know, of money from America, as the expression used to be, you know, to help out in this particular situation. So you're talking about probably having to restart from a lower base at every level, and start rebuilding again, you know. But you know, we've done it before, and it's not that long ago, you know, so we can do it again. But it's going to be a completely different landscape, that's for sure.
Yeah. And what you were, I think you were saying to me a few days ago, that the experience you had in continuing it on later.
Yeah, that's in the
really
immediate future. Yeah, as I said earlier about resumption, I mean, you know, I would think that the fact that we were able to continue to put the show on for a TV audience does give us a road back, if you like, because we have shown that it can be done safely. And as I say, you know, I'm no epidemiologist, but you know what we're doing at the moment in terms the lockdown doesn't actually eradicate the virus, and it slows down the rate of transmission. So the virus will still be in circulation whenever business tries to get back to normal. So there will still be controls needed. There will still be, care having to be taken. And, I'm sort of glad that we have shown that there is a way that we can transition back to normal, even gradually, which would at least allow some amount of money to circulate within our specific economy in the horse business, and supply product to the betting industry, which is one of the key drivers financially for us. We're a multifaceted business in terms of income stream, but the betting industry would be one of our biggest customers, if you like. People associated with the champagne set who are on site for fun and games, and that's a big audience or customer base as well. And then there's obviously the bloodstock industry itself, which is providing the horses, which is obviously very much dependent upon us. We can at least produce a product for the betting industry, having shown that we can do it safely and within the regulations, if you like. But that's only a temporary segue back into normality. It wouldn't be for all time.
And just on that, Martin, I suppose there is a feeling that this, while we might come out of this lockdown or restricted movement in the next couple of weeks or months again, it might arise in the autumn that we have a similar sort of, or maybe not as extreme, but a structured reduction in activity. How would you be preparing sort of for that? Based on what you've experienced so far, or any advice you would have for people in light of what we've just been through or are going through?
I think the world is definitely going to be a different place in 6 months, 12 months time. It really is. Like last year I'd have taken easily 100 flights, maybe 150 or 200 flights. I don't think I'll do that again. Look how many people we can speak to right now. 57 people from my living room. And I'm still wearing my slippers from this morning.
At least that, anyway.
I have my pajamas on from the waist down. So the world is.
We'll take your word of it, Martin.
The world is going to be a different place from that perspective. I think people will actually travel less. I think instead of flying and driving and hiring a car to go and have that 2-hour meeting, people will do that by Skype in the future. For us, our business is a very personal, hands-on thing, because you have to bring a chair or bring a product into a person with a disability and set it up and use it. And but even with that, this week we're doing consultations by phone, by Skype and WhatsApp video and everything to get people seated in nursing homes around the country that can't have a visitor anymore.
Oh, okay. So and you would always have done visits before, would you?
Always done a visit, yeah. But now we just have to now, and people are figuring out that that's actually really beneficial. They can get their problem solved in 15 minutes rather than have someone to come and disturb their whole day by a meeting.
Very good.
So that's a big thing for us. But on a hopeful side, on a positive outlook on it as well, I do think now that this virus has affected the Western English-speaking world, that I do think all of the best minds are focused on finding a resolution to this, finding a vaccination or a treatment or something. And there'll be greater coordination between Australia, Britain, America, Canada, Ireland than there will between France and China, for example. So now that all these English-speaking countries have been impacted, I think they'll find a resolution quicker than they could have before. And that's my positive outlook on the medium term.
Very good. Excellent. Michelle, how will it affect you, do you think, going forward? Will you be doing things differently?
I think there's probably quite a lot we'll do differently. I think we've learned some valuable lessons in terms of just how complex the business is in certain areas, and how big an impact a short, sharp drop in things can have. We're taking the time at the moment to review product ranges and simplify things and look at what can we do in the future to reduce the impact of something like this on the business. but also when we get out the other side and the economy has shrunk and there may not be as much available surplus income about the place, where do we sit in the market? What products do we have that will fit there? So it's forcing quite an inward view of the business to really evaluate what the future looks like, because there's no doubt about the fact that the rest of this year will be deflated and possibly take a couple of years to recover back what has been lost in the 1 year.
Right. Okay. So and you were saying to me that your distribution channel, obviously, as well, and there was turmoil in that whole scene in the UK, which was, it might have been demand there, but you couldn't get it to them.
Exactly, and I think we've seen the upset at retail level has really had an impact, not just on us, but on many other businesses, where the panic buying changed the shopper profile. And all of a sudden the retailers are not calling our products because they need to get bread, milk, toilet roll onto shelves. So, but that's a short impact. You would hope that as time goes by and a new normal world comes into play, that those things will settle down and a new normal will happen. But what that new normal looks like, we don't know yet.
As anyone, very good. And just, I suppose, another question then, I was going to ask about, how are you using the quiet time, but having listened to there's probably very little quiet time for any of you at the moment, in terms of making improvements or changes. But overall, in terms of for the attendees listening in as well, what role do you think industry can play, organizations can play in the recovery? Obviously, very specifically, Martin, you've done something very, practical and tangible, but there are other organizations out there that may not have that option. But overall, any ideas or advice as to what we can do as we go through this and come out the other end for industries generally?
I think industry, sorry, John, do you want to go ahead?
You, Michelle, go ahead, yeah.
Industry needs to, at this point, take a supportive role of one another. Every business throughout Ireland, UK, and across the world is going to be impacted by this. So we are going to have to find new ways of working together. And even as we work through the issues that are there with supply of cash, with working capital, all of those things, it's having consideration for the businesses and the supply chain that you're working in, but understanding that everybody is under pressure and that we will need to collaborate in ways that have never been dreamed of before for everybody to survive this. Yeah,
very good. So collaboration and consideration, very good. John, would you have any thoughts on that?
I read a book a number of years ago, it could be 10 years old or more, I can't even remember the author, but it was called The Rational Optimist. And it ties in with some of what Martin was saying. Back then, like you said, there's never been a better time in the world because of the speed of transmission of ideas. 500 years ago, inventors had to wait for the ship to come in, literally, to hear the idea of one other person. Now, ideas are shared instantaneously across the networks. And so you've got this huge brain power that we've never had before in the history of the human race. And it can be brought together, particularly in this situation where there's a common enemy, if you like. So that's a good thing. If we can only just capture some of that magic that's in the air right now of people collaborating and helping each other, which is great. I'm not guaranteeing that normal service will resume in terms of everyone grabbing their own piece, but we'll see. I mean, from our point of view, I mean, we depend on people resuming not just normality, the ability to celebrate, the ability to have fun. We're in the leisure and fun business. And sometimes even recovery will be first, and then the ability to celebrate will come at a respective distance thereafter. We found that after the last crash, which was a completely different circumstance. But even then, in the few years post-crash, people didn't want to have ostentation. They didn't want to be seen to be overdoing it. That's a challenge for us as well, to allow people to access the fun of it, but in a modest way.
Very good. And just Carol Daly has popped in a question for the panel, which I think, building on what you were just saying there, like, do you feel that the situation is going to make humanity think again about what's important, or will there be, you know, getting through this and back to normal as soon as we can? Do you think there's been a shift in this?
I think from my perspective, there's two really important things that people have to realize that come out of this. And for me, the two important things are, number one, manufacturing isn't sexy, but who needs manufacturing more right now than this country, when they can't get stuff from China, when you can't wait on a ship to come in from somewhere else?
Yeah.
If you need face visors, and a company in County Derry can make 1.5 million of them, or you can spend 240 million flying planes to China to get it, well, surely we should be investing in manufacturing in our own country. And yes, it might be a little bit more expensive. Yes, the people need paid a little bit more, but when you need it, it's up the road, rather than flying planes to the other side of the world for it. That's number one.
Picking up defective stuff as well.
Pardon?
And perhaps picking up defective goods as well, which has been one of the risks that's arisen in different countries.
Danish health system had to recall hundreds of thousands of things, masks, breathing masks from China that were just totally a rip-off. They didn't meet the standard. So I think there'll be a newfound respect for manufacturing, and I do hope that government, healthcare industry as a whole will take time to invest and spend a little bit more on something that's made close to home, rather than relying on China to provide everything that we need. That's number one. Number two is, who are the important people in our economy right now? All the, what they used to be called low-skilled workers, they're the people that we depend on at the moment. The caregiver in the nursing home that takes the people to the bathroom, she's the most important person at the minute. The man that empties the bins when you're stuck in your house. The man that drives the DHL or the TNT delivery van is the most important man in the town at the minute. It's not the accountant, it's not the solicitor. Sorry, Brian Lynch, if you're on the line. It's not, it's not all the people that historically we've put on a pedestal. The most important people in the economy right now are, they're now called key workers. A month ago, they were called low-skilled or unskilled workers.
Very good point. Yeah, very good point. And how do you think that appreciation will be shown? I mean, it's very nice to see this idea of sort of 8 o'clock in the evening going out to clap for healthcare workers. But as you say, there's a lot of people who are helping at that level. Do you think?
Well, I'm not an advocate for increasing tax or anything like that, but I do think that healthcare workers should be paid more. Definitely, 100%. They do a difficult job that nobody in this call could do. Not one of us could do that job. And it's higher risk. It's more physically demanding. It's more mentally demanding. They should be higher paid than they are, definitely. The nurses in the UK, the nurses in Northern Ireland were on strike at Christmas time because they weren't getting enough money. And their pay raise equated to £46 per month or something like that. And now, they found billions for healthcare. So I do feel that the very basics, if you work in a caring profession, maybe you get a Christmas dinner for free. Maybe you get your birthday off. Maybe you get an extra day's holiday in the year, or maybe you get a contribution towards childcare. There should definitely be something for these former unskilled workers who are now known as key workers.
Key workers, yeah, very good, very good. Brian Lynch has intervened there to say accountants will always be needed. But obviously not solicitors, Brian, so okay. Michelle, Peter Keogh was asked a question there about how do we manage the need to be realistic about the negative implications, which we all are experiencing for business in the long run, and at the same time be optimistic and positive?
It's a difficult one to do. I think we are in uncharted territories. I think we we have an obligation to keep our staff motivated, and fundamentally businesses that are strong will continue, and when this is over they will rebuild and start up again normal activity. I think communication with people constantly as to what's happening right now is key. Even coming back to, I think that for a lot of businesses that have implemented remote working over the last number of weeks, mental health is probably the biggest question that I've got with all of my employees, and how do we keep everybody motivated and communicating when they're working in their bedroom or they're working in the back kitchen. And within 2 weeks of certain people working remote, you could see the impact of isolation on them. And then trying to claw back with people and say, and put in rigid structures to say that you need to have team meetings at 9 o'clock in the morning, you need to have team meeting in the afternoon, you need to communicate constantly. We say these things all of the time, but we need to now make sure that we're doing them.
They happen.
They happen for people. A little one I think I had said to you was where we were having a meeting and we said, look, everybody breaks for coffee at 11 o'clock. Let's Skype call or let's WhatsApp call, and let's all sit around the table and have a cup of tea and a biscuit and have a chat that's not work related.
So you're maintaining that relationship, so it isn't just a work one, but it's obviously much deeper than that, more personal.
The relationships are key, and the relationships are what are going to keep businesses motivated over the next couple of months. The negative forecasts are there, and I think employees will always be aware of them. But in the back of that, you always have to have the element of positivity of what is the next step that we're going to do to build back up. And that's where communicating the plans for the future come into it, into it's either product rationalization or simplification of the business, or maybe I've put our food service guys onto a plan for, okay, when things open back up again, what are your main focus areas? Which customers do you think you can go to? What are the products that you'd like to present to them? So that you're keeping them motivated, knowing that there is future there.
Very good, very good. And Martin, Laura Lynch has just come in with a question complimenting the fact that you're a renowned leader in lean manufacturing. So what lean tips for other sectors in moving to and managing remote teams would you suggest?
I don't know. We haven't a massive team to manage remotely. I think Michelle's comment on that, on the breakfast, lunch and dinner meetings are a good idea. You know, instead of it all being business related, that people need that community. I think for me, it's reinforced how important work is for people. You know, work isn't a chore. Work is an enjoyable part of a person's life, and now that they don't have it, I think they're appreciating it more. But lean, I suppose, lean on the manufacturing side, again, it's the lean companies like your car industry, your Formula One, that are now making ventilators. The people that are able to adapt and change, move with the times, are the people that'll win. Someone wrote in there that the learners inherit the earth, and the educated find themselves very well equipped to deal with a world that doesn't exist any longer. I think that's very apt at the minute. Yeah. I'm not taking the credit for that. Someone else wrote that here.
Very good, very good. And obviously there's a whole backdrop to this of people out of work now as well. Hopefully temporarily for most, but there's no guarantee that there aren't going to be long-term unemployed coming out of this, with businesses not making it. Would you have any thoughts, just building on that point of, I suppose, the being agile and innovative and trying to come up with different initiatives from within organizations that are already there? Any advice or suggestions for flattening that unemployment curve too?
I would like to think that it's not like the financial crash where the economy took massive hits. Like it's, if you like, the people have taken massive hits, but the actual economy can bounce from this. You know, because it's not like businesses that were leveraged and went bankrupt or something like that. You know, if we get back to a healthy population, they will still want to eat, drink, be merry, you know, get back to, if you like, the normal stuff quite quickly. And so the economy can bounce quite quickly. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I agree with John in terms of it's not like the recession that we had. This is almost where you've just taken the population and pulled them back for a period of time. When everybody is healthy and lockdowns are over, people will have an appetite to go out and eat and drink and do all of those things. And I think that will bounce back quite quickly, because I think the relief overall for people will make that happen quicker than after any recession.
Very good. Very good. Yeah.
I do think as well that we should become dual skilled in some way, that whatever your business is, you should also have the ability to support the country in a time of crisis like this. Like Block Blinds make blinds for Velux windows for a living, but now they're making face shields for healthcare workers, you know. And could other businesses adapt and change, or have a dual function in a time of crisis like this again, where you could provide some vital part or a vital assistance to the healthcare system, for example?
Yeah.
You know, should like a clothing manufacturer have a standby of making, you know, face shields or masks or scrubs or something like O'Neill's have done? O'Neill's been able to pivot on that very quick, which is fantastic for them.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's hard to predict if this is ever going to happen again.
Sure,
but you'd like to think if it did happen in another 5 years, we would be much better prepared than we are today.
What is that preparation? I mean, is there something that distinguishes an organization like yours or O'Neill's or others who've leaped into the breach, and ones where they haven't? Maybe they've closed up shop and they haven't seen how they could help. What's the leadership skill there that is in evidence, where you can?
My father said the business was like being married. You had to do it before you get sense or after you lose it. So maybe it's a part of that. You just get on with it and figure it out. Maybe it'll work and maybe it won't.
Yes, very good. Okay, Mark McCormick has brought in an interesting angle here. We are obviously very much into learning, everybody on the call. So any advice for people who are off work, who to invest in their own learning, maybe even coaching? Any thoughts on that, and what you'd be recommending to your own teams in that space to make use of the perhaps working from home, slightly quieter, no commute time, and so forth? John, would you have any thoughts on that?
Well, we haven't quite done it yet, but we have kicked it around, like opportunities, and at a very basic level, where it's almost like the knitting circle, where you actually learn some very basic or upskilling on very basic tasks as a communal effort. So it's kind of social as well as learning, so that we come out of it with some of the simpler tasks. And I'm talking about how to manage the extreme functionality of an Excel spreadsheet or something like that we always think we'd love to master that, but we never seem to get around to doing it, you know. And then if you did that in groups, it would be something to keep people in touch that was work related, but as Michelle is saying, it wasn't necessarily hardcore work. It was upskilling, you know. So we're working on some ideas like that, particularly now that we've all got a little more comfortable with the functionality of Zoom and things like that.
Yeah, very good, very practical. Anything to add to that, Michelle?
We haven't done anything here as yet, because we've been
up to your eyes
trying to keep things rolling. But if we do end up in an extended period of quieter times, it's certainly something that we should be looking at with people, in terms of not just upskilling technical skills, but maybe getting them on some learning and development programs that we would have run ordinarily as part of the normal year, but we'll have to find a more creative way to do it now with people working from home.
Very good, excellent. Okay, well, I see we're coming close to the hour, which we said we'd keep it within the hour. So Look, I want to thank each of you for joining us this afternoon and being so candid and insightful in your thoughts, and I suppose the positive and sound leadership that you're displaying is very encouraging and what we need to hear in these times. Thank you also to all the people who've been attending and for the questions that you've been throwing in as well. They've been very useful. Thanks to, in the background, to Claire and Alison, who've been looking after the technology and the questions and feeding them there. I had hoped to actually put this webinar up on afterwards, but I just realized about a quarter of the way into it that I hadn't pressed record. So 3/4 of this has been recorded, and we'll make that available. But we've missed Martin's story, so I think we'll have to come back and record that separately. It'd be an invaluable piece to share. But I hope you found it all useful. Love to hear your feedback, and if there are other areas that or formats that we can do to help over the coming weeks, we'd be delighted to do so. We do hope to have another session like this soon. And finally, I wanted to bring to your attention the useful resource that the SA Business School is providing through the webinars that they're running and other materials as well on their website. They're recorded properly, so they are available after each session as well, but they take place typically at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and there's been some very good ones there that you'll find useful. So with that, just say thank you very much, and thank you for joining us, and best wishes to you and your families in the days ahead, and indeed your organizations too, as we come to grips with the ever-changing scenario that we're faced with. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, good. Now, I think